Hi, it is 5 o'clock, so we call the ARPA committee, to finish. Just the no table will note attendance. We will proceed on with, I'm not gonna go through roll call, sorry. And haircut, I've lost.
I've already documented it, so.
Okay. You have specific bullet points you want to go through?
Can we do that?
Can we go through those? Absolutely. So I'll let Jeff do the gap. It's okay if we go through.
I would very much appreciate that. Yeah, no, I'm just here to, understand.
Okay, so you have two spreadsheets in front of you. I've highlighted a couple of the changes. So just pick any one for right now. Pick any spreadsheet. It doesn't matter right now. The first, pick one, pick anyone. The first thing I want to update you about is the removal of two businesses, the second and third that are highlighted there. They have been zeroed out and their awards have been redistributed to all the applicants. And that was based on our conversation last week around they did not have an active business license for 2022 or 2021. So both of those businesses, that's what applies to them. So they've been zeroed out. The other update is that the first highlighted business there, the very top one, try not to name names. So the one at the very top, they had, just as a reminder, they had a business license. They have an active business license this year. They did not have a business license at the time they applied for funding in 2021. And as it turns out, property management companies do need to have an active business license. They do not need to pay tax, we found out. So the item up for discussion is that first business that is highlighted. And the difference of the two spreadsheets, one includes their award and one has them zeroed out. And so you can see the changes there. So I'm gonna put it up for discussion, roll call.
So, but also, complicating, matters. Gotta speak into sorry. It's one thing, we gotta have to put a mic on me. This is one of the property management company, one of the properties they own is on Railroad Avenue on front. And it has an overhang awning, which is in the middle of repair. Understand they started repair. Well, they started repair under the assumption and some assurance that relief was coming.
Correct.
They have subsequently stopped that repair. Our assumption is waiting for the relief to come. If we don't do something, that awning is liable to remain unrepaired. And it's very prominent and may impact other associated businesses. And so Mayor and I talked about, I've said we had a rule. No license, yeah. I almost said police thing for a time. No license, no funds. But given the complicating circumstances, it's probably in our interest to have that awning fixed. So she's really how we work around this. Looking for options. Now, I guess the option that I kind of thought about was one that we go ahead and do the allocation, but we stipulate these funds and the attorney will need to be involved. That well, and a further history. Their business license, both with us and the state, periodically has not been passed. Okay, so there's a probable habit here for some reason or another. Okay, again, they don't have to pay B&O, so I'm not exactly sure the impact of that. Right. So I guess I could get through it if we were to stipulate this is a 5-year no interest loan. which will be, discontinued at the end of 5 years. But if in the interim, there is a lapse in business license, the loan will be repayable to the city on demand 30 days.
Point of order though.
Yeah.
It can't be a loan from the city because state constitution doesn't allow the city to lend money. So it has to be in the form of grant. And, but I understand where you're coming from. I just want to,
Well, okay, if we can form it as a grant, repayable upon business license lapse within the next, anytime during the next 5 years. See, I don't know if grants we can stipulate.
no, you can, but what you can do is determine how much they actually owe to the city in those previous years that they missed paying. And keep in mind, it was passed in 2018, the business license. I did some research. So it would have been only 2019 would have been the year that any business would be obligated. And the minimum was $25 a year for the business license to a maximum of $500, depending on the number of employees. So if we're talking landlords, most of them fall in that $25 bucket. And so my recommendation is if they did miss a year of paying $25 or $50, we simply deduct that from the amount that we allocate out to them and collect the past due uncollected business license.
But if we're gonna go down that path, I would suggest we pick up those other two businesses. They may have B&O involved, but they also need to make the city whole in regards to business license and B&O.
I understand that, yeah.
I mean, I kind of opened this whole can of worms to begin with when I said they have to be registered, and I didn't realize that there's a new business license in addition to the B&O tax, and it's not parallel to the B&O tax, meaning that it also includes landlords. And, you know, that's a whole nother discussion because, it's probably collecting $25 is costing us more than $25 collecting from, you know, these very, very small businesses that only are holding property.
Well, not too concerned about the internal process, I'm more concerned about directed behavior.
Fairness,
Yeah.
we want fairness.
Well, yeah, I think whatever we do, it does, we need to make sure that it's fair across all the businesses that we're doing it.
Can I ask a question? Because that's the concern that I have there about, I recognize that I am not on this committee. So apologies if I'm speaking out of turn. I'm looking at other highlighted businesses. One with a higher score that's going to get nothing. But if it's because they don't have an awning to hold over our heads, that doesn't feel equitable. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. That was my concern.
So it's not that I'm not in favor of this business getting money, but if this business is getting money because they have an unfixed awning that there's the implication isn't going to get fixed unless they get this money. And this other business that actually scored higher according to our own plan doesn't get money because they don't have something that we want them to fix. That doesn't seem equitable.
Yeah, the other option, I guess option number 3, going on all week. The other option is we do take them off the list and we do code enforcement because that will okay. It's now staff's time to go, no.
Or can I ask another question?
Yeah.
This is a significant dollar amount next to this business that has a lower score than another business that has a $0 amount.
So that was, they were asked what the pandemic impact was to them, and they dollarized that. What they asked for then was scaled according to their score and funds available. So yes, you may have a greater score, but if you ask for less money, you get allocated less money. And that may more represent what they identified as pandemic impact.
Right on. Yeah, I don't know if there's some way to balance those two out in some way. But I can't, I don't, I mean, in my opinion, and you guys are the committee, and I'm not, I recognize you guys put a lot of work into this, so, don't mishear me, but, I think it's, the reason you guys have put so much work into it is so that it is equitable.
Right.
So unless there's something done to fix the equity gap here, I think it's an opportunity for people to call it in question. And rightfully so. Potentially, I don't know. I haven't put a bunch of work into calculating the stuff as you have, but just first election. So I'm gonna shut up now. This is not my committee.
I think just to point out that, first of all, the businesses gave specific dollar requests, and we didn't know how much that they should ask in the beginning. Came back and we decided a cap of 25,000 would be the most, and then we came up with this scoring system, which the council approved, and then those were factored in so that there would be, as much fairness and equity in distributing these. I think if you go back to the CARES Act, which I wasn't a part of, that was done less scientifically than this one. And we've had now 16, 18 meetings to try to calibrate this so that there's fairness and equity. And I think in the CARES Act, there might have been half a dozen or 8 meetings.
So I can't
Council
speak
all the
to
way.
12 of those meetings.
Right.
More my time. So, no, you're right. That's what I said. I mean, it's either bring them all on equitably, or they're all off based on the role of not having business. And how onerous would staff feel if it was, again, they need to make, it's gonna be, some of these are B&O tax companies. So I would assume either they need to make us whole in terms of license fees as well as B&O tax, or we take it out of their allocation. That may be the more efficient way to do it, is just take it out of their allocation here. Here's our estimated cost of your prior year, 19, 20, 21, 22, could be 4 years. 4 years of B&O taxes and license fees that appear not to have been paid based on your license. May have been paid, but wasn't allocated to the city, so the city lost out. I assume they paid their B&O, it just wasn't allocated to the city from the state. And we can't go fix that. So. Because they didn't have a license. Because they didn't have a license, so the state allocated out the funds based on the number of licenses we showed we had. It's the other side of the equation. It may end up that they're paying twice on the city's portion of the B&O, but if it weren't, and that'll, they can always say no to the money, or it's gonna reduce, if it's of real onerous, it'll reduce it to 0. We'll just say based on your obligation to the city for licensing and B&O, no allocation. And we apply that to all three. This is where you say no.
Well, just want to make sure there's clarification, right? So we don't actually receive an allocation from the state in terms of, so businesses actually pay the city directly.
Oh, okay, okay. Thank you.
And is it true that not all businesses are obligated to pay B and O, whereas there are current regulations that they are required to have a license, business license regardless whether they pay B and O?
So it's probably a better question for legal, right?
Okay.
For example, and probably know the differences better than I do between both, but in essence, our B&O is destination based. For the most part, much like sales tax, and it's calculated based on gross receipts. And so there's potential maybe depending on how that's classified in the Snoqualmie municipal code, whether some businesses pay and others don't, just based on a few of those variables in play.
The other two businesses though are more than likely B&O paying this, correct?
The one. Yeah. One.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about the,
Yeah.
The other one.
generic term one.
Right.
The other
No
one's
B&O
also-
for that. Yeah.
Developer. Property owner, all right.
And I just want to provide some clarity and context for the question about the CARES Act and the business license. If I recall, the application for the CARES Act was the same as the application for the ARPA. We designed the ARPA application on the CARES Act, and it did have a criteria as a business license. When going through and doing all our due diligence and looking at that, we did find businesses that were not current with their business license, and we gave them the opportunity to get current with their business license, and then they received the money. And one of those businesses, I don't know where that business was, if they had it or not, but they were part of that process. I will speak for that business in the sense that I don't think that there is any purposeful intention of doing this. I think that this is a struggling business owner running a business solo. English is a second language. I think just trying to stay afloat. Also having some construction impacts on her neighbor that were detrimental to her for several months. I'm not saying that that should sway, but I just, for me, that kind of plays into the equation. But I just wanted to give you that context for CARES Act and business.
Appreciate it.
So in that case, I'm not listening to.
You wanted to talk, I can see that.
Yeah. 5 minutes later. My comment then I guess would be, and I know that I was one of the people that also said that it's not calling the funds, but if that's the case, maybe we should offer them the opportunity to cure and then be able to receive the funds, provided that they do go through and make this be what they should be. Either the front or the back end, which will receive you guys.
So if I could recap, so one, they must get a current business license. Two, their allocation is deducted by our estimate of what their license fees would have been for 19, 20, 21, and what their B&O would have been 19, 20, 21.
Let's not go back 100 years. Let's,
But that's,
But if they
Well, that's
had a
kind of a
business
period of-
license in 2020 to receive the CARES Act, wouldn't they be current? Wouldn't we only be looking at 21? Says the non-finance person.
I mean, 19, maybe, I'll pull it back, 19 may be the plot. I'm just trying to figure out what's the time period in which we assume this impact happened.
Well, the CARES Act money was given in June of 2020, and then we had a second round in November, December, and it was based on the beginning of, because of the pandemic.
Correct, but when they identified, when the individual business identified their impact
For CARES,
for this,
for ARPA.
for ARPA, was it 2020 only, or was it 2019 and, or was it
I don't know.
2021, 21 only?
Well, when we did the lost revenue calculation for that criteria 3, we gave them the option of looking at 2020 and 2021 or 2021 and 2022. So
I can't do that.
2019 and 2020 or 2020 and 2021. We gave them the option because some businesses didn't open until 2021, 2020.
Okay, so I'll pull it back to say estimated license and B&O fees for 20 and 21.
Okay, just to give you context, we have only done business license checks for the list of applicants here for the years this year and last year.
That's fine.
Okay.
I'm not gonna-
So,
If they had it in 2020, great, it's not a penalty we need to apply to one of these people.
but you want to, for these three businesses here,
We can bring, they can be back on the list if they're current, if they get a new license or have one. And their allocation gets reduced by estimated license fees and B&O taxes for 20 and 21. Now, if they paid in either one of those years, that comes out of the equation.
got it?
I'm sorry, I get complicated with you guys and I don't really mean to, but this is complicated so much.
Can I reiterate for the record?
Yes. You can write it down.
I've summed it up in, I think, two statements. The business must obtain a current business license for 2022. And the city must be made whole for past unpaid business licenses and B&O taxes for 2020 and 2021.
I like the way you said it.
I like the way you shaved off like 7 minutes.
So is the committee okay with that?
Very happy with that.
And we just gave you more spreadsheet work, I'm sorry. And actually more work beyond that to figure out what it's supposed to do. But take what she wrote. You apply it, if we can have that by council, maybe we could get this done.
Yeah, oh, yes. Yes,
We're talking Monday's meeting?
Yes.
the
And
agenda
if
was
not,
already sent out.
Well, let me back it up though. If you can give me a revised spreadsheet, I will make a motion for replacement, there's another term that came out, to replace this. Yeah, replace this new spreadsheet with the one that's currently on the agenda bill. Because it's already been through F&A and whatever, and I don't want to change that until next Monday. So give me a revised spreadsheet with printouts for the rest of the council. And we will do a substitution of that portion of the agenda bill for this table, well, next month.
So we're gonna leave the agenda, which went out earlier today, as is.
As it.
We can do that, and I will get the dollar amount as close to 749,931 as I can. Some sense in there. Okay, sounds like a good plan.
Complicated, but I think everybody's equally unhappy. Any other matters, changes for discussion?
Yes, one more thing, sorry. So in the scoring, which you can't see on the spreadsheet, I am wondering if the committee is amenable to changing the score for Snow King Ice Arena for criteria 1, which was sustainability and capital investment. Their current score is a 0 because of loss of revenue. They applied for the loss of revenue. I wonder if we would agree to changing score from 0 to a 5, based on our understanding that the arena itself is the capital investment.
So my proposal would be no, only to save you work. Because they're already capped at our upper
Yeah.
limit.
Right,
Okay, so changing them to 5 won't change their allocation.
correct.
Don't do it if it's not gonna change.
Okay, well, I think
What,
go ahead.
what's the reason?
Well,
I had a sneaking suspicion, but.
I think Mayor and I just wanted to get them closer to a score that fits in that category. If we're going to give them a certain amount, we wanted it to be within that funds allocation table. The score would match their distribution amount.
So my other one is, I'm not gonna do 18 weeks. So scores are the scores, we proceed on.
Okay.
And again, it's not gonna change their allocation because we capped them anyway.
Okay.
Does that mean, okay?
That's fine with me. Is everybody else in agreement? Councilmember Wong, Benjamin, do you have any questions?
I
I know
did
that
have
you weren't
another-
here at the,
I did have a
Okay, yeah.
question. I did have a question if it's an appropriate time to ask. I was, something that I don't totally understand. We're looking at all small businesses here in the paperwork. It said that there was also allocation for residents or things like mortgage, relief, things like that. That is not handled with this.
It is not handled.
Is that going to come later? Is that something that
So
that is yet to come or is it in?
we already approved that out of council. That was the 200,000 to helping me out.
Helping Hands is taking care of that?
Take
Okay,
care of that. We felt they were in better position to judge the validity of the request than we were.
okay, all right, that was what I wanted clarity on. So
And-
thank you.
And also those checks are being cut through the city directly to those residents, not to the organization.
With input from Helping Hands.
Based on their identification of the dollar.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you.
Sure, you want coming up?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about implementation, just based on the kind of stipulation that we just discussed here. So we have basically 2 days to maybe calculate what the B&O tax is that would apply to particularly this one business. They would have a form to fill out. They'd have to figure out what their gross receipts are. That may be a bit difficult for us to bring back on a timely basis by next week. And so I'm asking the committee, would it be better just to include the maximum dollar amount that would potentially be given to that business, but then have a condition applied to that, said they would make the city whole as part of the overall agenda bill, instead of having to provide council with that calculation on Monday.
Right.
That's,
Because essentially, they're going to get the full amount of the ARPA money that we've determined. But on condition that they make us whole on
Right.
any,
No, we take it out of their allocation. What we said.
so we would award them whatever we would award them, but then we would also claw the money back, or at least a portion of that back, right, in order to pay the B&O tax, but it may take some time in order to calculate that B&O tax, right, before next Monday.
and we're not wanting to hold up the other checks.
And if we're not wanting to hold up the checks, and so if we don't have that number available, which gives us maybe about 2 days to try to work that out, business, and they'd have a form to fill out, for example, as well.
Do all of the checks have to go out simultaneously? Is that a stipulation?
Well, if we're interested in what that dollar amount is gonna be towards that business, how much are they actually gonna receive from this? Subtracting out the B&O tax and the business license. The council needs to know exactly what that number is, then it may take us a while to figure out what that number is, because we have to go to the business, collect the form, figure out what the gross receipt is and how much their gross receipts are in that particular year. Take out that B&O tax and then supply council with that one particular number. And so if we provide them, or at least suggest, part of this chart here, here's the potential maximum dollar amount that would apply under this criteria to this business. But then under the condition that they would be paying the city back, B&O tax as well as the business license. And so with the understanding to the business, they would be not receiving that total dollar amount, right, as indicated in the sheet here, but they would be paying a portion of that back to the city. Or we would exclude that from the contract eventually, as soon as we come up with that number.
Well, the only one that would
That makes sense.
only the third one would have to.
Yes,
So let me count, I'm not sure. I hear you, and I think I agree with you, but I'm still gonna try to short circuit this somewhat. If we, assuming they pay B&O at any time, if they've never paid B&O, they should just be off the list. But assuming they pay B&O at any time, why don't we just take an average of the last 3 years they paid in and use that as their yearly B&O? It may be off, but, it just takes away from money we're giving them, and we're not taking back any money, it's money the city is giving.
Well, the city's not giving the money.
We got the money from ARPA, we're allocating
Right.
it out.
Right, but at the very least, this would be a way for that business to get a hold of the city. You know, so there's that benefit to the city. At the very least. Right,
Should we be running this by Bob?
Yeah, he's gotta get involved in all this. So let me see if I can do this so that we can get through Monday though. Yes, Bob needs to weigh in on this, the wheels can come off the cart on this in the moment. With Mr. Sherman. Okay, one, the spreadsheet needs to have all three businesses in there allocated without deduction. Two, there'd be a subsequent motion that says those businesses which do not have a consistent business license history for the period we're talking about should have their allocation deducted by business license and P&O costs prior to check. Okay, and that'll just be direction to you guys. We can do that after the fact on Monday. Got a lot of stuff to go for Monday. And that way we can get through Monday. We can again substitute in the spreadsheet with full allocation, attach that motion to it, and let you guys do the homework appropriate to carry out that motion. That any money coming back then comes back to the city coffers. There's no recalculation of the spreadsheet. We'll use it whatever we do with the rest of the ARPA funds.
Putting on my financial hat, I would think that the
So close.
business, if they owe, $35 for B&O taxes, whatever that number is, they should be cutting a check from their bank account to the city for that $35. And then once we receive that, we hand them the check for the full amount of this, but we have to make sure that we receive the ARPA funds, because that's where the money's coming from ultimately out of their checking account. So, and I think that would get around all this other stuff, and then Bob can weigh in between now and then on how the mechanics are, but essentially we're allocating $750,000 to these.
We're so close.
And the rest of the people.
Yeah, but wait a minute. I just need to get the date checked.
I do too.
We need Mr. Sturbeck to weigh in, to maybe find it more where to go.
Right.
This should be one of the options he considers in doing that, but if we can just do the deduction and cut the check, we can get them out. If we have to wait for them to pay,
How about this?
and
It's two businesses that just have to get current with their business license, right? So we can put this agenda bill through, we can pass this at $749,000. Of the two, we say, this is what your amount is, we're gonna hold the check. You go online, you pay your business license, and you pay it. No money, no, but then they're current, and then they don't get their check until they're current. So we're not like switching money back and forth. That's the
if they
third.
had no business license either year, they pay double.
Well, we can make that happen.
Okay,
We
that's,
can-
we have to be, for the period we're talking
Right.
about, they have to make us whole for that, for those 2 years.
We can keep their check, I don't want to use the word hostage, but we can say that this is what they're gonna get, but they won't get that check until they pay up. The third business is the one that we need to do some work behind the scenes. And so as much as I want to spend every single penny on here, I agree with you. Let's say it's $5,000. We figure out what she owes us to make it whole. It turns out $3,000.
Yes, we're not-
Painful that the two has to go back to the coffers and that we can't distribute to the rest of the businesses, but we are so close, as like, I think we all agree. Let's just let that $2,000 go. But so we can go into Monday confidently knowing the two businesses will get taken care of. We'll deal with that. And the third one, a little bit more complicated, but we will only promise the maximum amount, which we know is gonna come down because she's probably gonna have to settle up some stuff with us.
I just, I wanted to, nothing's being held hostage, right?
Right.
And I know that,
Yeah.
that you're not saying, but
Yeah,
But this is-
don't mean hostage.
this is the only way to make it equitable for everybody on the list. If these businesses don't get caught up with the things that everybody else on the list was already caught up on, it's not equitable to anybody on the list. So I don't see the harm in holding on to the disbursements to these three businesses until they've taken care of that. That's not,
what I'm
that's not
saying.
holding anything
No.
hostage. It's being fair to everyone.
True, it was just the
Right.
word that came.
No,
to mind.
totally, I mean,
Yeah.
but I just wanna,
But you understand that if we don't do, and I'm not trying to be fighting with you, but if we don't make this little situation for these three, to give them some grace and some time, we can't allocate the other 73. And we need to get that money out the door. So we're just gonna take the time and.
so there is something that says that everybody has to get their money at the same time.
Every time that we make a change to each one of these businesses, it becomes a recalculation it is not just like 1,000 here and 1,000 here. It's not that simple. And we have to get this ready to get this to council on Monday. It's
Sure.
complicated.
But again, that was do the allocation for the businesses.
Yeah. And we have,
The post action, post Monday, will be for staff to figure out what is the cost of making whole.
Yeah.
I think we need guidance from Sturbank then is, do they need to pay us that? And then we can do this, or can we deduct it from their allocation and pay them that? I'll look to Mr. Sturbank to advise us on that option. Okay? I think we had a mechanism to get you clean on Monday already.
Not having to recalculate.
we don't want to I don't think anybody in the room wants to recalculate, and we want to be able to find a way that we can go on Monday and do this, and we can deal with those three, and they're not going to get any more that's listed on that sheet. They may get less, but they're not going to get any more than what's on that sheet, and we will work as staff to get everybody current. Right? Yeah.
Thank you all. I know it's been like a huge effort and with all the figures I'm back and forth. Yeah. Thank you for your patience.
Point of clarification, Henry. So is the matrix that's currently in the agenda that's been published? That is the matrix that has 3 zeroed out businesses, correct?
So both of these worksheets went from the spreadsheet that came in. So neither of them will apply for Monday.
Yeah.
It'll be a whole
Give me
new,
give me and her a new spreadsheet and we'll do a substitution.
So the bottom line is we don't need to make any changes to the council agenda that's been published.
Well, my opinion is we can't. It's already been approved by our recommend.
And it will be walked on, and what you'll be doing is walking on, I love the word substitution, I refer to it again, it's not, for the, of the existing agenda bill.
The existing agenda bill will be introduced, seconded, and as part of the discussion, the motion will be made for substitution of this material.
That makes perfect sense.
And please advise these two businesses skin on their teeth that these allocations went through. I was dead set on Thursday that no license, no money. I'm much happier today for some reason.
Great. That makes me feel so much better.
Again, one more check. Any other questions?
No. I think you guys have done a good job. Thank you.
Any other business? We got direction clear as mud?
I've got it, on it. I just wanted to say that I won't be here on Monday. I'll join remotely. So I'm hoping that there won't be too many questions, but we'll keep it. I'll be online. Questions read.
Hopefully, we the committee can handle a lot of the questions. We'll see.
So just as a disclaimer, I'm not going to be present unless I can figure out how to do Wi-Fi on the airplane.
You can do that. It's doable.
So getting on council does not mean you have full life. Don't do. We have to trust the rest of us.
So the other question came up this week about what to do with the rest of the allocation. And is there a chance the 850,000, I believe, from the second tranche? Could we broach that just briefly now? Or is that not something that we want to go to tonight and pick it up?
If I may,
I think that matters before F&A.
yeah, it's scheduled for the next F&A meeting. We bumped it from Tuesday's meeting
Okay,
to the July 6th meeting.
okay.
And it's just an ARPA briefing of sorts about how to manage the remaining funds as my recollection.
And then also trying to work, making everybody equally unhappy at me. I'm pretty well stuck. This was an ad hoc committee. There'll be another committee for the remaining ARPA funds. It may be the same people, or it'll be a separate committee.
Great.
Any other matters for the committee? If not, and if there are no objections, we are adjourned. So, Karen, thank you all. Another fun meeting.